What's up, guys? Welcome back to the shop. In today's video we're going to be making some Damascus. What I have here is 15 and 20 and 1084, and I'm just alternating layers, and it's going to be a 16 layer billet to begin with. We're going for about 300 layers in total, so we're going to be having to stack it quite a few times. I'm not going to use all this material. This is a lot for what I have planned for today, so at one point I'm going to separate it off and just use what I need. So I'm starting off with 16 layers, and we're gonna forge it out and recut and restack. And now that our billet is ready, I'm putting a little bit of WD-40 in there, and that just seeps in between the cracks and helps promote a good forge weld. And it does that by helping keep the oxygen off of it while it's in the forge heating up. And it also burns off into a layer of soot, which is basically pure carbon, and that helps promote a better forge weld. A little bit of carbon here and there is always helpful for forging and forge welding these knives. So here I'm introducing my kiss blocks. They're 1 inch high, and I'm just going to use them as a reference to be able to forge this steel down to about a 1 inch. And that will be the final height for this billet. Once I hit that 1 inch mark, I'll be cutting it and restacking it again. That way we can increase our layer count. And now I'm just going to square everything up, and these longer dies do quick work of squaring everything up and getting everything nice and flat and even. So here I am spraying it down with some WD-40 again. The WD-40, as I said before, it helps, but this time I used a spray bottle because I ran out of the WD-40 I had, and I decided it was better just to buy a big old gallon can and fill up a bottle whenever I needed it. And as you can see, we cut it into 4 pieces, so now instead of 16 layers, we got 16 times 4, which is approximately 64 layers. And we're gonna do the same thing. We're just gonna forge it down into a block and get it down to 1 inch again. Here are my 1 inch kiss blocks, and I'm just gonna work it on both sides until I get it roughly wherever I need it, which is gonna be probably around 1 inch by 2 inch rectangle. I know that the billet doesn't actually look that big on video, but it's actually a pretty big and pretty heavy piece of steel. And so once I work it down to that 1 inch, it's going to be pretty long, and it's going to give me another chance to be able to cut it and stack it again. But the reason why I go down to 1 inch and I don't go thinner, because if I go thinner I can stack it more and get to my layer count faster. But at the same time I start losing control of the actual billet, because the longer it gets, the harder it is to hold and be able to maneuver around, especially in the small area that I'm in. And that's pretty much my reasoning for why I go with 1 inch versus going thinner, because thinner would be a better option, but not in my case at least. So here I only cut the billet in half, which is going to give me approximately 128 pieces, or layers I mean. And that's because I'm gonna use a portion of this billet for a 100 layer belt that I'm doing. So I decided to kill 2 birds with 1 stone and just make a big billet of Damascus, and then just cut it in half and use what I need for one project and what I need for another. I don't know how many other makers do this, but it is a lot better just to do your Damascus in bulk if you aren't making any specific pattern. If you're making a specific pattern or a mosaic, for example, I'd probably say it's probably better to do in bulk as well, just because those patterns take so long to make that it's kind of beneficial just to have it just in case. Alright guys, so here I have one of the pieces I cut off. The other one is going to another project, and here I have about 100 inches. This is 1 inch thick by about 4 inches, so I'm going to actually forge this out because I want to cut it into 3, and right now it's a little short for a 3-way stack. So I'm going to stretch it out probably ½ an inch thick, and whatever length I get, cut off the ends, divide by 3, and then we'll restack, and hopefully we have enough steel for what I got planned. So, quick pro tip for anybody that doesn't know or is a new maker or just actually wants to know because they like to know fun facts. When making Damascus, there's a lot of loss of material and scale and cut-offs because you need to cut off the ends. That way you don't introduce the crappy welds that normally we have towards the end. And because there's always going to be a loss of scale from oxidization while the material is being forged. So it's always important to be able to have more than enough material than what you think. If you think you need X amount, get 20% more. One really crazy thing about this billet is that it looks rather small. I have essentially 300 layers here, and I have 3 different pieces, each 100 layers, well 128, so it's 180 something layers, 380 something layers. And it doesn't look like a lot of steel, but once you start working it down and once you start forging out your blade to shape, you start realizing that it is more than plenty of steel. Though in reality, it doesn't look like quite as much as it did in the beginning. For today's project, we're going to be making a kukri. Why? Because I've been wanting to make a kukri for a while now, and I decided that today was that while. And I'm going to start by forging in my tip. I tried to do it on the press, but I didn't really like it. It was over pressing it, which is something that generally tends to happen. It's kind of hard to control the presses sometimes. So I decided to just move to doing it by hand and then just controlling my thickness with the press. Here I'm working with about a 1/4 inch of material, and I'm trying to keep it roughly towards 1/4 inch. That way afterwards I can forge whatever I need. So here I made a giant mistake, and that mistake is the mistake that I do in almost every one of my builds. And that mistake is I portioned out my material too early, and I portioned out too small. So what I did was I pretty much cut in my transition for my handle, and I figured I had enough material for what I wanted. And then I didn't. Then I realized that the belly of my knife didn't have enough material, and then I have to do the neck of the knife that comes right after the belly. And so here I am using the sideways dies to draw my material sideways, trying to pull that material back to the side from where I had already pushed it in. And I'm trying to correct my mistake. And that mistake is something I do rarely. I kind of jump the gun, and I don't know why I do it, but I do it, and I end up jumping the gun and cutting my material a little bit too soon. And as you can see, I have plenty of material to work with there, so I kind of just shoot myself in the foot sometimes because I get impatient. So here what I'm doing is I'm transitioning that material that I had separated for the blade to make a bit of a belly for the knife, and then I'm gonna work that little bit of material that I drew out for the neck of the knife, or I don't really know what it's called really, but it's the thinner part of the kukri. And so I'm using a drawing hammer, a crossbeam, and I'm drawing out that belly, trying to get that belly as big as I can. Because if you know what a kukri knife is, if you've seen one before, they're predominantly known because of that big belly it has towards the front, and then it has that really nice bow that's bend in the knife that really helps for, you know, forward chopping motions. I like them. They're very cool. They're very cool and aesthetic looking. So here I'm just trying to get that width that I need for that part. And I will be making another kukri in the near future because I really was let down with my mistake on this one. And in part it is because I didn't really have in mind what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to do a kukri, but I didn't really have it in mind, like pictured perfectly. And because I am impatient, I jumped the gun. But fortunately, I believe I was able to save it, and you'll be able to see towards the end of the video how it comes out. But I think I did a pretty good job at correcting my mistake. And it came out looking not exactly the way I wanted to, but pretty close. Overall, it came out being a very beautiful piece and one of the nicer knives that I made. Actually, I believe throughout this year, 2025, a little bit of last year and really throughout this year, I've really upped my game, and I've been making a lot nicer looking knives and with a lot nicer shapes and handles. So I definitely do feel that I am improving there. And I'm going to go on a bit of a tangent here, but I do have a kind of series planned for the near future in which I'm going to be making multiple Damascus, different kinds of mosaics and all kinds of stuff. I'll be making the Damascus and a knife for that Damascus, and I'll be saving a little piece of it to be able to do a knife that incorporates all those Damascuses in it at the end of the little mini series that I'm gonna do. So that's something I have planned out. And also we have the YouTube knife maker challenge coming up, so that will be in the next few months, and I need to start working on that. And as my amazing loyal audience that I have down there, I know you guys are gonna vote for me whatever crap I make, but let me know in the comments down below what I should make for the YouTube knife maker challenge. If you don't know, it's gonna be based on military weapons this time. So military knives, daggers, swords from any time in history. So let me know some of the cool history blades that you know of and put them down in the comments below. That way I can get a rough idea, maybe something to inspire me or something, because I really don't know right now. I'm really just thinking of making a giant kukri sword, but I don't know if I want to do a giant kukri sword. I might want to do something different, something I haven't done before. And so I would really appreciate those ideas in the comments down below, and we can chat about it. Back to the build though, I have pretty much the shape set out for myself. The handle, I gave myself a little bit of a swell, that way it holds the handle well. And I'll be doing some fixing in the grinder. Alright guys, so we're done with our forging portion, and this is what we're working with. I know it doesn't really look exactly how I'd imagined, and that is because I messed up here. But once we profile it, it should look a lot better. Another thing, I didn't really forge out the tip because I'm going to only bring the tip up to right about here. I don't know if you can tell right there, but I'm not sure I trust these edges very well, because that was where I ended up forging my tip from the stack that I ended up forging together, and I don't like how that looks, so I'm just gonna bring the tip back a little bit. So I'm gonna go on ahead and mark it with a marker, and we're gonna go on ahead and profile it and get it ready for heat treat. So theoretically, now that I have it roughly the shape, I'm going to be doing my fixing on the grinder. And I'm going to be able to take off some material to be able to fix that. It's not really a lot. I'm not really changing that much other than bringing the knife a little bit farther back. Because whenever you forge down those layers, like I did the 3 different blocks of 100 layers, in that process, layers warp and interchange a little bit. Not really interchange, but some stretch out faster than others, and so you have those visible lines there where it's 100 layers or it's the other 100 layers, and that could be a problem. It could be a weakness. It could be a crack. So that's why I decided to grind that out and make sure that I got nice clean steel underneath for the tip of my knife, just to play it safe. With all my holes drilled, all I'm doing here is I'm cleaning up the surface of the knife. I just want a nice clean surface, that way I don't have any kind of weird tensions whenever I'm doing my heat treat. I want a nice flat even surface for a nice clean and hopefully a wart-free heat treat. And while the knife is in the oven, please enjoy this turtle that decided to do me a favor and mow my lawn. So he's going at it, and hopefully he'll be done soon because that grass is growing pretty quickly. Alright guys, so I am out of the oven. The knife came out pretty nice. It is definitely not straight. You can definitely catch that warp over there towards the end. But I can fix, oh, you can see it way better right there. But I can fix that with the carbide peen, so I didn't really pay much attention to it. This knife, I still have plenty of space to work with. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to make sure it gets nice and straight before we move on to cleaning it up and doing our final grind. So I did have some minor warping on this blade, but it wasn't too much of a issue. As always, I refer back to my carbide peen hammer. If it's warped, you can unwarp it by beating the crap out of it with something harder. In this case, a carbide ball, peen ball. For some reason, I want to keep calling it a ball bearing, but it's a bearing ball. But people always complain because it's a bearing ball, not ball bearing. But I say it backwards, and I kind of catch myself on it sometimes. All in all, I do that little ramble just to let you guys know that I don't care. I'm going to call it a ball bearing anyways. So now onto our finished grind. I'm going to grind off all that material and grind off all those small divots. That way I have nice clean steel now that my knife is straight. And I'm going on to the grinding. Now the grinding on these knives, it's an actual pain in the ass. That little spot right there before you get towards the belly, it's very difficult to grind, and you have to grind it at a bit of an angle. And you pretty much just have to grind it with the corner of your platen. And because I have to do it like that, it's very easy to mess up and gouge it. Alright guys, so I am rough ground to 120 grit. I'm going to go on ahead and sharpen this guy, and I'm going to do a chop test on some wood just to make sure that my edge isn't too thin and that it holds up pretty well. Overall, it's coming out pretty nice, and it feels not too bad on the handle, good size. We'll see what happens once I put the handle material. Maybe it'll be a little bit thicker or not, I'm not sure, but so far so good. So for these kinds of knives, I like to do my grind or my sharpening, at a 220 grit only. A lot of people like to go higher up in grit, but I think 220 is pretty fine. You can probably get away with 400 as well, but I like a 220 grit for these kinds of aggressive camping type knives because it is toothy and it's really good for cutting certain things. It's not gonna be too fine where it damages your edge. And 220 grit is, once you strop it, it's razor sharp regardless. So if you do it right, 220 grit can definitely cut. And so we move on to our chopping test. I'm chopping this piece of 2x4 just to test out the edge on the knife. I have it up to 2000 speed, but it definitely took me a solid while and my hand was cramping up while I was doing it. But the Kukri made quick work of this with pretty much no issues whatsoever. And besides the hand cramps, it was actually pretty fun. Very good for stress relief. And afterwards, it was still nice and sharp. But no matter how sharp a blade is, if you don't know how to use it, you still can't cut paper. But yep, it stayed nice and sharp, and I would shave my arm to show you guys, but I don't like doing that, so I just don't do it. I don't get it. Some people shave their whole leg off and they're like, look, see, it's sharp. No, thank you. And with its test pass, we're going to go on to our hand sanding, and I'm going to get it up to 800 grit. Alright guys, so the knife is hand sanded. Time to move on to our handle. We got these scales right here. They have a little bit of resin, and they are stabilized. I believe this is some spalted maple, might be something else. I'm not quite sure. I'm pretty sure it's spalted maple. And these areas were filled in with some colored in resin, and I think it looks pretty cool. We're going to be using it on this knife, and we're going to be using some black liners as well with some black pins, and this thing's going to look pretty nice. So we're going to get working on that. So these scales came from the ones that Mike stabilized for me, and there were some that had some notches in them from where the wood was a little rotten, or notches from where it was spalted, and he asked me what to do with that, what kind of color resin I wanted. I told him just to have fun with it, and he did not disappoint. I love the look of the resin on here. I like the purple with the yellow, and I love the wood grain, and so this definitely paired very, very well with the knife. You'll see at the end once I show the full finished piece, and I think this came out pretty nice. Here I broke my bandsaw belt, so I had to go over to the other one. It just snapped on the inside. It was overdue for changing, so I'm not surprised it snapped. And it was actually my second one for the day, because earlier I had also broken the one on my metal bandsaw, the vertical one. That one also snapped on the inside, and that one was still relatively new. That one surprised me. But that one also snapped, and I replaced that one. I still have to replace the wood one because I don't have one, but I did find one in my shed, so I'm pretty sure that one fits. I hope that fits. If not, I'm gonna have to go buy another one. So now we're moving on to gluing up our handles. Standard procedure as always. A little bit of epoxy. In my case, I use G-Flex. It's pretty much the best epoxy I've used. The only thing is that it has a very long dry time, but I like to always do these at night, and then in the morning when I wake up, it's nice and dry and ready for working on. And so now's the time that in every video where I ask you if you like the content and you like what you see, be sure that you are subscribed. About 90% of the people that watch me are not subscribed. I don't know why, but definitely do subscribe, and comment down below what you think of the knife so far and what you think about it at the very end once it's done. This knife will be available for sale on my website in the description down below. As of late, since I started promoting it, people have actually been, well, actually it was my fault because I was never uploading the knives to put for sale, but I am now selling my knives, and this guy will be online. For whoever's interested in it, it will be there for sale, and I'm very, very happy with the way it turned out, so I'm pretty sure whoever gets it will enjoy it as well. One little gripe I did have is that when I was doing the handle here, I kind of went a little bit too far right there on the Coke bottling of it, I guess. I don't know what it's called. So it ended up being just a tad bit too thin for my liking, but after a while with it, I started getting used to it. But other than that, I really, really liked the rest of this knife, and the handle just took a little getting used to. Maybe if you got bigger hands than mine, it'll fit a little bit more comfortably in there. But other than that, it's definitely one of the best knives that I've made to date, and I'm sure it'll find a good home sooner than later. So if you like what I do and you want to help support, that is a way to support, and a free way to support is to like, comment, and subscribe. So here I'm sharpening up the knife again, up to 220 grit. After I had sharpened it and tested it, I knocked off the edge because I didn't want to cut myself. And so here I am resharpening it, and here is a final look at the piece. The Damascus on it came out incredible. Unfortunately, the camera does not do it justice. Especially on the spine, you can see all the Damascus running through on the straight grain. And on the faces, you can see the different layers of Damascus and tight and kind of scattered patterns. I think it looks great. I think it looks awesome, and I think somebody should go buy it so I can buy more material. And as always, guys, I really appreciate you guys for watching, and thank you very much, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Peace.